we're honored to welcome Miss Lana Konkova and Miss Natalia Mavrina. They're educators, musicians, psychologists working in the intersection of art, perception, and human connection. Their work explores not only expression, but as a unifying language, it expresses art not only as expression, like we're used to, but as a unifying language, a medium through which coherence, awareness, and connection can be restored in a fragmented world. Today, they invite us to rediscover art as a universal connection, from division to conscious perception. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Спасибо большое. Приветствуем вас, уважаемые друзья, коллеги.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening to everyone. Our team represents the Department of Culture and Art, and we're going to speak about art as a universal connection, a path to conscious perception. We invite you to take a look at art as a specific technology of achieving connection, a connection that has been lost with time, perished, but can be restored at a conscious level. We represent the Department of Integral Art and Culture, and we dedicate ourselves to restoring the integral structure of the art. And we are exploring the world where the spirit, the art, and the sane are connected all together, and where a human being stops being just a separate human being, but becomes an integral part of the society. The goal of this presentation is to trace the evolution of art's primary function, the function of connection, and to propose a method for its conscious restoration. Our hypothesis is that modern alienation from art is not a consequence of our unpreparedness, but the result of the historical loss of two fundamental dimensions, which we will call the vertical and horizontal axes of connection. We will travel along a map from the point of unity to the present day, examine the dead ends we have reached, and offer you a tool that may serve as a bridge to a new quality of perception. So ask yourself the simple question: why do you need art? Not for broadening your horizons, not for intellectual prestige, but truly, deeply. So giving an answer, an honest answer, is not easy. We know everything about context, history, and price, but a direct, living answer eludes us. What does the feeling of awkwardness come from? Where? We are like guests at a grand festival where everyone speaks a forgotten tongue. Our hypothesis is this: we have lost the ability to hear the original, deep voice of art, a voice that sounded long before words appeared. Paleontological evidence tells us that art is older than speech. Rhythmic sounds, dance, and images on cave walls appeared long before humans learned to speak in full sentences. This poses a paradox for evolutionary theory. Why expend enormous energy on activities that do not directly aid survival? The answer can only be one. It was vital. It served a function more fundamental than the exchange of information. This was proto-art, and it connected people into a group, synchronizing their states. This is what we call the horizontal axis. And it connected the group to something that transcended the sacred, the spirits of nature. This is the vertical axis. Today, we possess highly complex language and technologies, yet we feel like strangers at least. Language has grown more complex, but the connection that art once provided has been severed. Our entire journey ahead is a voyage along this map. We will see how a single ritual campfire, where everyone was a participant, gradually fragmented. First into many separate hearths and fireplaces, serving different social groups. Then intermediaries appeared, critics, museums, the market, who positioned themselves between the person and the work of art. Then art tried to cry out directly through feeling, but that cry turned out to be a solitary one. And finally, in the 20th century, art became a giant laboratory where the holistic experience was disassembled into parts to understand how it works. Today, we are the heirs of that laboratory, living in a world of total digital fragmentation. Let us establish a starting point. In the primordial ritual, there were no spectators, there were participants. Dance, drums, cave paintings, flickering in torchlight. This was a collective portal to the spirit world. In ancient theater, 10,000 people together passed through catharsis, living the fates of heroes as their own. And in Gothic cathedral, a person found themselves inside a total environment where architecture, light, sound, and scent worked together, dissolving the boundaries of the individual self. This was not cultural leisure, it was a technology for assembling community and connecting with the sacred. Art here was action, shared breath, the warmth of a single fire, around which there were no outsiders. The Renaissance shifts the focus from heaven to earth. The artist transforms from an anonymous craftsman into a creator. An art begins to speak new languages. At court, it is the language of power. A formal portrait speaks not of eternity, but of social hierarchy, of who is who. In the home of a wealthy burgher, it is the language of prosperity. The Dutch still life, with its loving attention to the textures of material things, affirms the value of earthly goods. Even theater, gathering both aristocrat and commoner under its roof, is forced to mix tragedy with farce. It becomes a horizontal mirror of society, but loses the vertical connection to the heavens. Music, likewise, becomes secular, splitting into the country ceremonial and the intimate. Connection ceases to be universal. It becomes targeted, social, contextual. The shared campfire breaks into many separate lanterns. The next decisive rupture occurs during the Enlightenment. Art, like everything else, is summoned before the tribunal of reason. Aesthetics is born as a philosophical discipline, and a new key figure emerges, the critic. Diderot, in his salons, explains to the public precisely what and how they ought to feel. The direct channel between work and person is interrupted by an intellectual construct. At the same time, the art market is born. In 1766, Christie's opens, and a masterpiece acquires a firm price tag. It becomes an asset, an investment instrument. Its value is determined no longer by its ability to move the heart, but by the artist's name and provenance, the history of its ownership. And finally, the museum, this new temple of reason, completes the process. The Louvre displays masterpieces removed from their natural settings. An icon that was once a window into the divine becomes a monument of ancient Russian culture. In literature, the critical tradition also takes root, and with the flourishing of printing and copywriting, a writer's success comes to be measured by print runs and royalties. In music, with the rise of sheet music publishing, a composition can now be dissected bar by bar without hearing a single note, with harmonic progressions studied as a mathematical puzzle. Connection becomes a service provided by connoisseurs and the market. The natural reaction to the call of analysis and the market approach was the revolt of feeling. The Romantics sought truth in the personal shock of encountering nature, or the music of Beethoven. The realists sought it in empathy for another's fate, in detailed testimony about the lives of ordinary people. The literature of Dickens and Zola plunged the reader into social and psychological depths to awaken their conscience. And expressionist painters like Edvard Munch in his The Scream attempted to make emotion the direct material of art. Mary Wigman's dance was a bodily cry, striving to transmit raw affect. This was a great and honest attempt to establish a direct personal-to-personal connection, bypassing all intermediaries. But it revealed its weakness, emotion stripped of shared context, and a common vertical axis proved fragile to single use. Recognition in pain gives a momentary sense of community, but it does not answer the question, what do we do with the pain? Where does it lead us all? And then 20th century art performed an act of ultimate honesty. It said, we can no longer pretend that we share a common language. Instead, let us take apart all our experience and understand what it is made of. This was a giant laboratory. The first lab technicians were not painters, but a composer and a writer. Schoenberg proclaimed the emancipation of dissonance and created the 12-tone system, a rigorous framework for music after tonality. James Joyce in Ulysses did the same with language. The stream of consciousness was a research protocol of the psyche's workings, in which world and image became objects of close observation. Jackson Pollock explored the pure energy of the body, leaving on canvas the trace on his dance. Dali dissected the unconscious, creating exquisitely precise models of dreams. Malevich pushed the analysis of form to absolute zero in Black Square. Marcel Duchamp, by exhibiting a urinal in a gallery, showed that the author need not be a creator, but rather someone who selects and places an object in context. And Warhol explored how meaning and value are produced by media and the market. By the end of the century, we had a complete catalog of parts and a precise understanding of the mechanisms of perception. But the main question remained open. How do we reassemble a living whole from these parts? And so we find ourselves today in a situation that has only intensified this fragmentation. Free laws of the digital environment are now in effect. Dematerialization, art becomes information. Hypersegmentation, everyone lives in their own cultural bubble. And the imperative of instant resonance. What matters is not what is deep, but what quickly hits. Under these conditions, the legacy of the 20th century laboratory, the ability to precisely target individual registers of perception, proves more in demand than ever. Contemporary art, in order to be noticed, is compelled to strike precisely, addressing not the whole person, but their individual buttons. Let us look at 5 key strategies of such targeted impact and see their inevitable dead ends. The first method is bodily shock. Damien Hirst, with his shark in formaldehyde, strikes directly at the nervous system, bypassing consciousness. It works without fail, but only once. The shock dissipates, leaving behind only numbled sensitivity. This is not a dialogue, it is an electric jolt. The second method is confession. Tracy Emin puts her unmade bed on display, documents of her depression. It touches, it produces recognition. My God, I've been there too. But this strategy often closes itself within a circle of shared pain, without asking the next question, why do we all hurt so much? What is the fabric of the world generates this pain? What in the fabric of the world generates this pain? The possible healing stops at mere acknowledgement. We learn to delight, to take this pain as delight. The third method is the intellectual game. The complex paintings of Peter Doig demand erudition from the viewer, knowledge of the codes of art history. The pleasure of deciphering is an intellectual analog of catharsis. Often the curatorial text describing the artwork begins to play the main role. Any gesture can be declared a masterpiece if it is placed in the right context. This produces absurdities, as in the well-known case of the empty room, when an installation was forgotten and left uninstalled. The accompanying wall text was enough for the public to accept the empty space as a finished work. The fourth method is the slogan. Art is as political action. Banksy creates images that live not on walls, but on ripostes in the news cycle. It is powerful and timely, but the price is dependence on the moment. Such art speaks to us as citizens, but rarely finds words for the lonely person at 3 in the morning who asks not about politics, but about death, love, and time. Finally, the fifth and rarest method, a hint of meaning. A hint of meaning. Oliver Eliasson, in The Weather Project, created not an object, but an environment. A giant sun, mist, a mirrored ceiling. People lay on the floor for hours, silent, talking, simply being. There was no message here. A container for silence had been created. Environments as pointers are created, as James Turrell does. They do not act upon us directly. They shape the conditions in which we ourselves may discover something new within us. But the fact that such works are perceived as exceptions only underscores the sad norm. Art capable of deep connection has become a great rarity. And so we have traveled the path from ritual unity through the great disintegration to detailed analysis. The diagnosis has been made, the map drawn. And here, an encouraging conclusion awaits us. We now have everything needed for reassembly. A complete catalogue of the elements of human perception, an understanding of their mechanisms, and the technologies for creating complex environments. The task is no longer to intuitively serve the sacred or reflect the social. The task is to consciously design a new architecture of connection. Healing lies in restoring art's dual heartbeat. The vertical axis connects us to what is greater than ourselves, and the horizontal axis connects us to one another. So now we want to ask our colleagues to share their experience. Hello, everyone. My name is Svetlana Tokobayeva. I'm a teacher. Once I have led a choir, and in the choir there were two women near one another. One of them was self-taught. She could sing, but she was not professional. She had a weak voice. Another one was a professional, and when they were singing together, the unprofessional singer felt as if her voice was very strong. It was flying so high and so far. She was so impressed by her own sound. She joined and then adhered to the voice of her friend and became part of this beauty. But at the moment when she was not conscious about it at the moment. She perceived the beauty of her voice as her own. And once her friend, who was a professional singer, fell ill. And the unprofessional friend who was left, could not do anything. She felt lost. She felt at a loss, and this is how we discovered that togetherness or cohesion is not just a way to add to each other. It is a way to animate each other, to become living. Because without this cohesion, just nothing is possible. So to summarize the above, we propose a very simple yet, as we believe, effective tool. We must abandon the main question that blocks us. What does this mean? This question immediately turns us into supplicants before an expert, students seeking the correct answer. Instead, we ask a different, living question: what connections are being born here? And we unfold it in three directions, corresponding to three levels of our experience. First, what does this awaken in me? Not what does it mean, but what happens to my body, to my emotions? What memory does this resurrect? This is the restoration of connection with oneself. Second, what is happening between us? Do I feel the presence of others in this space? Is there a shared field, a shared breath, or am I isolated? What is the quality of this connection? This is the horizontal axis. And third, what does this give rise to between us? And what is greater than us? To what simple and vast question about time, death, love, beauty does this lead me? What state of silence or questioning remains in me? This is the restoration of the vertical axis. This simple shift in attention changes the roles of all participants. The artist ceases to be a demiurge descending from the mountain with stone tablets. They become a facilitator, guiding our attention, an architect of the environment. They bring not a ready-made meaning, but the very possibility of its birth. A precise gesture, a pure form, a situation that may become a channel to a new dimension. The viewer ceases to be a consumer, evaluating like it or don't like it. They become a co-participant. They bring their own living attention, their readiness to feel and respond. The work of art ceases to be an object. It becomes a fire, illuminating a new space, a field for encounter, for new possibilities of inner events and meanings. Friends, we began this journey as a campfire in a cave, where art was inseparable from shared breath, prayer, and survival. We saw how that fire broke apart into thousands of lonely candles, how it was studied under a microscope and disassembled into atoms. But art is far more complex than a museum exhibit or entertainment. It is the most ancient technology of connection. It is a bridge built from both sides. And today we stand on the threshold of a new synthesis. Integral art is an attempt to consciously, with the full weight of knowledge, build the shared fire anew, to kindle the flame of that very connection that is older than words. Its warmth is the goal of our journey. Such authentic magic is what the modern integral approach to art is capable of. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to your questions. We ask Evgenia and Yaroslava to get their microphones turned on.
Thank you, ladies. I didn't know I was going to love that presentation. it's easy to look at Netflix, for example, and see that that's a reflection of our inner world. But you need a lot more depth and understanding to see it reflected across centuries. So thank you for that. That was fascinating. And we have time for a couple of questions. Let's start with any questions that we have in the Zoom. Raise your hand if you have a question. If not, we'll go to our social media. Okay, how can we integrate art into the integral building of connections? That's the question.
I think I could start, and the friends will join me. As a matter of fact, in order to feel the integral nature of connections, imagine one is praying, another is singing, a third one is, I don't know, feeling. And if we are talking about the possibility to feel one universal space, we have to feel that we are attracted by something single, something universal. And art has the mission of creating that single attractor. Lana says, I will add, in this presentation, we have asked a number of questions for the reader, for the listener, to allow the listener to enter the space, the inner space of reflection, of thought. And in the same way, the artists are responsible for setting the questions through their art, because their art will be perceived in the context of these questions. The artist is responsible for thinking, for deciding what questions his or her art will raise in viewers.
Okay, thank you. And another question from social media. You talk about the vertical. It sounds beautiful, of course, but we people have different ideas about this more. One goes to church, another to the forest, a third doesn't believe in anything at all. How can art possibly unite us all under one vertical? Isn't it just a pretty wrapper, while in reality everyone comes up with their own?
Да, ну, наверное, начну. Конечно,
I
очень
will
важно,
start. Natalia
чтобы
says,
все понимали, что мы все разные.
well, it's important for us to understand that everybody is unique, everybody is special, and if we and everybody should be provided a space of their own. And the trick is to allow each of us to be who they are, and understand that each one is different, each one is unique. But at the same time, we are creating a common space where everyone can self-actualize, becoming bigger through connection between us. Free up some space near oneself in order to allow everyone else be there. Lana adds, there is no such mission as to gather everyone under one vertical. But if a person finds strength and motivation to take even just one step beyond their normal perception that they are accustomed to, that is already a success, that is already an achievement of art. Personally, as a person, I can stand in front of a blank wall, let's say, a white wall, and ask myself questions, ask myself deep questions standing in front of a wall. But art it aims at helping us transcend the standard perception. And to ask those questions, Natalia says, I will add something else. I remember that when I was a little girl, me and my family, we attended different events like spectacles at the theater, and the people around me, the strangers, they were just strangers. I had nothing to do with them at the beginning. But after the show, I used to feel them differently. I felt they are part of my family. They are my friends. I didn't do anything for that. I didn't exert for that to happen. I just was listening to the music, watching the show, and after the event, I felt and I understood, I was conscious of the fact that it's art that is connecting us. It is, let's say, music that has connected us. And I think it's not only music, it's art as such in general that is created to tell us who we are, that we are actually one.
Thank you, ladies, for that wonderful presentation. We need to move on.